Hey guys, Mama Sam here. So today I'm going to be doing a video on the top 5 mysteries that I think they're unsolved, but just things that have really stuck with me over the years. So I have been like this creepy internet sleuth looking for paranormal stories for ages now. So there's been a long time, for years, where I've found these stories, and they are, I'm just going to do 5 of them today that just have never really left me. They've really made an impression on me. Also, I want to add that I got another subscriber, so that makes me super happy. So thank you for subscribing. Also, I have to give myself a little bit like a plug, like credit here, because I have done all of this from the ground up, okay? I went from being a cake decorator who never touched a computer like ever in my life. I've learned how to do all of this from just not knowing anything all the way up. And I also don't use any social media. Like I've dabbled a little bit when the channel first started, but I don't do any of that anymore. I'm just too old for that. Like I don't have Twitter, and I have like accounts, but I never use these. Like, so I don't have Twitter. I don't use TikTok. I don't use Instagram. I don't even know if there's any others. Like, I don't really know. I use Pinterest. I do like Pinterest because that's where I get like my recipes and my hairstyles, which I didn't do my hair today. Sorry. But, anyway, so it makes me very excited when I get a new subscriber. Also, I wanted to add, my sign has said fire and blood now forever. So if you guys have like a quote that you want me to put up, like leave it in the comments, and the one I like the best, I'll totally use it. That'd be so cool. Anyway, I'm rambling, so let's get started. Oh, top 5 mysteries that are just dear to my heart. Some crazy stuff. So for number 5, I have the man from Torrid. Officials told him that Torrid didn't exist, but he presented them with his passport, issued by the non-existent country of Torrid, which also showed visa stamps corroborating his previous business travels to Japan and other countries. Yet when they called the company he said he was having a meeting with, they had never heard of him or his company ever before that moment. The hotel he had reserved a room at had no reservation for such a person, and the bank listed on his checkbook appeared not to exist. Customs officials showed him a world map and pointed to the tiny country of Andorra. The man became irate, saying that Andorra didn't exist, but it was right where Torrid should be. His country had existed for 1,000 years. The man was detained by customs and given a room at a nearby hotel for the night, while officials tried to figure out what was going on. The following morning, the man from Torrid completely vanished from his hotel room, which had been guarded by immigration officials all night long. And to make matters worse, all of his personal documents, including his passport and driver's license issued by the mystery country, vanished from the airport's secure room with no indication of how he achieved this strange escape. He had seemingly vanished into thin air. Now, this one seems totally fake, right? Like, it sounds totally fabricated, but this was a real thing that was documented that actually happened. And I just always thought it was really interesting. So, like, what could it have been? Like, really, what was it? Like, was he like a spy that like came over and he made up this story? And then like when he got captured, he went to the room and he told his spy friends that like, you need to come get me. I got caught. And they caught him, or they came and they broke him out without anybody finding out. And I don't know. Or was he a time traveler? Was he from a different dimension? I don't know. It even goes on in detail to say that it even says that his language was French and he spoke Japanese, other languages. In his wallet, he had a variety of currencies from various European countries. So, I mean, this was like for real, like happened. Maybe he was a spy. So for number 4, I have the missing colony of Roanoke. Roanoke. I think it's Roanoke. This one actually is pretty popular, and I learned about it years ago. And they actually made, I think, like an American Horror Story season was kind of about the missing town of Roanoke, like loosely based on it. The origins of one of America's oldest unsolved mysteries can be traced to August 1587, when a group of about 115 English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island off the coast of what is now North Carolina. Later that year, it was decided that John White, governor of the new colony, would sail back to England in order to gather a fresh load of supplies. But just as he arrived, a major naval war broke out between England and Spain, and Queen Elizabeth I called on every available ship to confront the mighty Spanish Armada. You know what I just learned? I just learned that Queen Elizabeth I was actually the daughter of Anne Boleyn, who got her head cut off by King Henry VIII. In August 1590, White finally returned to Roanoke, where he had left his wife and daughter, his infant granddaughter, and the other settlers 3 years before. He found no trace of the colony or its inhabitants, and few clues to what might have happened apart from a single word, Croatoan, carved into a wooden post. So basically, this guy, left his family here, and then he came back and they were just all gone. So there were also reports that when he got back, it looked like they had vanished suddenly. Like they just disappeared into thin air, because there was food was still in pots, people were cooking it. It was they had been sitting down having dinner and stuff, and then they just got up in the middle of dinner and left. So there were these things that indicated oh my gosh, these people literally in the middle of just doing everything things, and they just vanished into nowhere. Nobody's ever been able to explain it. They have no idea where these people went. That guy, he never found his family, nothing. Now, there's a theory that they think maybe a native tribe came and maybe captured them and killed them, or maybe they just moved. But to me, them deciding to leave doesn't make sense. If everything was they just vanished into thin air, you would know that these people decided to get up and leave. People disease maybe wiped them out, but there was no bodies ever found. So it's just really interesting. Another, a really weird mystery that I still think about. So for number 3, I have one that you could actually go and see to this day. I believe I want to do it. I haven't done it. It's the Paulding Light. It's just this mysterious light that you can see that never goes away. It's there every night. So for half a century, the Paulding Light has been a legend in the Upper Peninsula. Those who have seen it say it's a bright white light glowing deep inside the woods, changing size and shape before fading into the darkness. There was a show that I used to watch called Paranormal Files Fact or Faked. I wish they would bring that show back. It was so awesome. And they actually did one on the Paulding Light, and they could not figure out what it was. It's still a mystery to this day, no matter what people are trying to say they debunked it and all this kind of stuff. It just doesn't make any sense. Don't know what the light is. Nobody has been able to figure it out. I would love to go and see it. It kind of reminds me of the Marfa lights, which I'm going to put on a different list. I don't know. It's pretty cool. I'd like to see it. So the story behind it, I think, is... What is the story behind it? So ghost legends about the light's origin abound, but the most popular is that the light is the ghostly lantern of an old railroad worker killed on the job, who still shows up faithfully to light the way. The swinging of the lantern as the ghost walks along is supposed to cause the light's pendulum motion that is sometimes observed. But is the light a genuine mystery caused by supernatural forces or mere illusion formed by distant car headlights? No, car headlights are, come on, do they think people are stupid? We know what car headlights look like. Whatever. Okay, so anyway, that is something I would love to see, is the Paulding Light. So for number 2, I have the Seneca Guns. The Seneca Guns are loud booming noises, most often described as sounding like thunder or a cannon being shot, and can feel like a small earthquake on land. To date, there is no scientific explanation for this phenomenon. While many theories exist, none have definitely been proven. Not even the name itself can be confirmed. The name is claimed to be Seneca, attributed to both Seneca Lake in upstate New York, where the sounds are heard often, or from a Civil War battle in Seneca, Georgia, where the sounds mimic the booms of cannon fire. These loud booms are only heard in coastal areas, however, they are never heard at sea. That's interesting. The reverberations of the Seneca Guns have been loud enough to shake and rattle houses on land, but never enough to cause any damage to date. So what are the Seneca Guns? I remember hearing about this a long time ago. I always thought it was really interesting. Just these really loud explosion sounds off of the coast of Seneca, although it says that it's not just isolated to there. It is along the coast, but I think that that's the most famous. I think that's probably the one that it's most famously known for. So I don't even know how to begin to explain what this would be. Like, it kind of reminds me of like the skyquakes, which those are really scary to me. But it's like there's no cause for them. Like, I don't know when they started. They probably still happen. I don't know. What is it? I don't know. So for number one, this is like the OG mystery for me that I still think about to this day all the time, probably more than any of the other ones, except one other one on a list I'm going to do later. And it's the Dyatlov Pass incident. This one is crazy. It is so crazy. In January of 1959, a 23-year-old hiker named Igor Alexeyevich Dyatlov led a journey to reach the peak of Oderton. I'm so sorry. A mountain in the northern Urals of Soviet Russia. The young man brought a team of 8 experienced hikers, many from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, along with him for the adventure. Before he left, Dyatlov had told his sports club that he and his team would send them a telegram as soon as they returned. But that telegram was never sent, and none of the hikers of that so-called Dyatlov Pass incident were ever seen alive again. When their bodies were found in the coming weeks, their strange and gruesome injuries left investigators baffled and repulsed. Some were missing eyes, another was missing her tongue, and many were struck by a force comparable to that of a speeding car, but no one could make sense of it. Based on what was recovered from cameras and diaries discovered at the site of the hikers' deaths, investigators were able to piece together that on February 1st, the team began to make their way through the then unnamed pass leading to Otterton. As they pushed through the hostile climate toward the base of the mountain, they were hit with snowstorms that ripped through the narrowed pass. Decreasing visibility caused the team to lose their sense of direction, and instead of moving toward Otterton, they accidentally deviated west and found themselves on the slope of a nearby mountain. To avoid losing the altitude they had gained, or perhaps simply because the team wanted to practice camping on a mountain slope before their ascent to Otterton, Dyatlov called for camp to be made there. It was on this solitary mountainside that all 9 hikers of the Dyatlov Pass incident would meet their demise. When February 20th rolled around and there was still no communication from the hikers, a search party was mounted. When they arrived on the mountain, the investigators weren't hopeful. Though the group was made up of experienced hikers, the route they had chosen was remarkably difficult, and accidents on these tricky mountain trails were a real danger. With the hikers having been missing for so long, investigators expected to find an open and shut case of a horrific accident on treacherous ground. They were only partially correct. They found bodies, yet the state in which the bodies were found only raised more questions. When investigators arrived at the campsite, the first thing they noticed was that the tent had been cut open in a way that soon proved to be from the inside, and that it was nearly destroyed. Meanwhile, most of the team's belongings, including several pairs of shoes, had been left there at camp. So a running theory is that they were inside their tent and there was an avalanche, and they heard the avalanche, and they were so, had to get out of the tent so fast that they just took their knives, they cut it open, and they jumped out. Now, to me, this makes sense. You would jump out. Some of them left their shoes behind, like it said. They left some of their supplies, and they were probably just running to get away from the avalanche, okay? So far, it all makes sense. Then they discovered 8 or 9 sets of footprints from the team, many of them clearly made by people with either nothing, socks, or a single shoe on their feet. These tracks led to the edge of the nearby woods, almost a mile away from camp. At the forest's edge, under a large cedar, the investigators found the remains of a small fire and the first 2 bodies. I'm so sorry. I know I'm going to butcher these names. Yuri Krivon, we're going to say Yuri K, 23, and Yuri D, 21. Despite temperatures of -13 to -22 degrees Fahrenheit on the night of their deaths, both men's bodies were found shoeless and wearing only their underwear. So, now, you would think, okay, they were running from an avalanche. Well, then obviously they stopped. Like, they stopped and they made a fire, and then they took off their clothes. Well, I know that like people have said, like, if you get hypothermia, you take off your clothes for some reason. It's almost like you get so cold that you're hot, I guess, in a way. So you take off your clothes. But okay, well, they had a fire. So then they found the next three bodies, those of Dyatlov, Zina, Zinaida, 22, and Rustam Slobodin, 23, who died on their way back to the camp from the cedar tree. So, did they. Okay, so was there an avalanche and then it was over and they were going to try to go back to their campsite? Maybe they were thinking they were going to dig it out? While the circumstances were odd, investigators found that the case of death was clear. All the hikers, they said, had perished from hypothermia. Their bodies showed no indication of severe external damage beyond what had been inflicted by the cold. But this didn't explain why Doroshenko was brown purple in complexion, or why he had gray foam coming from his right cheek and gray liquid coming from his mouth. Furthermore, this didn't explain why the hands of the two hikers under the cedar tree were scraped away and the branches above them were torn down, as if the two men had tried desperately to seek shelter from something or someone in the tree. Meanwhile, Slobodin had head injuries consistent with someone falling and hitting their head over and over again. Komogorova had a baton-shaped bruise on her side. These two hikers, as well as the others found by this point, were also generally underdressed and wearing some of each other's clothes, only supporting the idea that they'd fled suddenly and without adequate preparation into the freezing night, despite being experienced hikers. It wasn't until the other four bodies were found 2 months later that the mystery deepened even more. The remaining hikers were discovered buried under the snow in a ravine 75 meters deeper into the woods than the cedar, and their bodies told even more gruesome stories than those of the other members of the group. Nikolai, 23, suffered significant skull damage in the moments before his death, while Ludmila, 20, and Semyon, 38, had major chest fractures that could only have been caused by an immense force comparable to that of a car crash. In the most gruesome part of the Dyatlov Pass incident, Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, part of her lips, as well as facial tissue and a fragment of her skull bone. They also found the body of Alexander, 24, in the same location, but without the same kind of severe wounds. This second group of bodies suggested that the hikers had died at distinctly different times because they appeared to have been making use of the clothes of the people who died before them. Dubinina's foot was wrapped in a piece of Krivonishenko's wool pants, and Zolotaryov was found in Dubinina's fur coat and hat, suggesting he had taken them from her after she had died. Perhaps most mysterious of all was that the clothes of both Kolvatov and Dubinina showed evidence of being radioactive. Due to evidence like this, even with more bodies found, the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident only grew more baffling. So to me, that is just bizarre. It's like super bizarre because you have, okay, like it all kind of makes sense. Even the guys that were found at the bottom of the cedar tree with their hands messed up, if the avalanche was coming, like maybe they tried to climb up the tree or something and then, I don't know, they fell out. I don't know. The clothes being all kind of mishmashed was because they had hypothermia. So, maybe they were grabbing their clothes and all this kind of stuff. And so, it makes sense so far. But then the thing that they left out was the person that had blunt force trauma to the head was actually making their way back to the camp. So they weren't climbing anything. There was no indication this person was climbing anything. And they died because of something that hit them in the head. And then you have the people that made the campfire. I don't know. It's just all very bizarre. And then, of course, the people that were found even further away. Now, there's a theory that maybe they fell. And off of this like the three people that were, the girl that had her freaking tongue cut out, that they had fell off of this really big cliff, and then she died, and so he started taking her clothes. It's just really weird. Okay, why was her tongue and her eyes missing? Did an animal come and eat them? To me, it just doesn't make sense. So people are, there's the avalanche type of thing. There is some people saying like the native tribe that lived up there, like actually like was chasing them. It wasn't avalanche at all. They came and they were chasing them. They killed them because they were on their land or whatever. And then of course, because of the radioactivity or the radioactive clothing, there's people that are saying it was aliens. It's always aliens. Aliens are a fault for everything. But anyway, whatever the case may be with this one, it's so weird. It's just really bizarre. It's the one kind of mystery that I think about it a lot. It's really crazy. What happened? I wish we knew. So that's it, guys. That's my video for today. My top 5 mysteries that have stuck with me through the years that just are very strange and are very fun to converse about. And if you have any strange mysteries that you think about or that have always kind of stuck with you, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. I'd love to read about them. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe if you would like to. So that's everything I got for you. I hope you guys liked today's video. It's always fun for me to get really kind of creepy, and I love all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye, friends.